Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you very much for this very kind introduction. I will start sharing my screen so I can show you a brief presentation.
Sure, sir.
I hope you can all see the slides, which is always a bit of a challenge. So,
yes, sir.
As mentioned, I want to speak today about the need for collaboration when it comes to cybersecurity, and I will, of course, build the bridge to innovation and to entrepreneurship. This has been one of my major topics in the past 10 years. When we look at cybersecurity for new technology, but also for old technology, we identify four important elements: the usage of the technology itself, the configuration of that technology, and the management of that technology. Now, to explain that a little bit, the technology is basically how it is built by the entrepreneur, how it is built by the vendor. The configuration is how it is set up before its initial usage. And the management is what the responsible technology team is doing throughout the life cycle. And this is an interesting challenge because most vendors and most inventors are very focused on the moment that the technology can actually be used and can actually be sold. We do not have enough focus on what happens after that. And some technology is used for maybe a few months, but other technology is used for 10 years and even longer. The usage is, of course, what then the end user is actually going to do with that technology. When we look at the cyber incidents, and my team researches that annually, when we look at 2019, we see a very interesting but also concerning picture. Roughly 9% of the technology of the cyber incidents is related to the technology. And that means that we're getting very good at building technology because we don't have that many incidents caused by the technology itself. If we look at all those conversations about the people being responsible for cyber incidents, then we notice that we actually have only 12% caused by the usage. And we see that the configuration is responsible for 32% of the cyber incidents, and the active management of the technology is responsible for 47%. That's almost half of all the cyber incidents is caused by failures and mistakes by the IT teams and the technologists and the technicians who are managing the technology as long as we are using it. If we take a closer look and we look at the configuration, we see that there isn't one big particular group which is worse than all the others. There are issues like copy pasting. It happens a lot that the wrong configuration is copied or the wrong image is copied, etc. It's versioning, it's scales, it's using technology for a different purpose than it was designed. Soon as we look at management, the story becomes different. Abandoned technology is with 21% responsible for the biggest part of cybersecurity incidents. And abandoned technology means that, for example, technology is used although there are no security patches available. Abandoned technology also means that a device is put somewhere and there are still patches available and security updates, but they're not installed. So that technology is in an old state. And when we follow a little bit what happens in the cyber sphere, we see that there are new vulnerabilities coming out every single day. So abandoned technology is the biggest single cause of cyber incidents. When we look at that, we see that there is a shared responsibility, and that shared responsibility needs to focus at the 91% human error responsible for cybersecurity incidents. In the industry, we should look at common standards. A lot of them is available. NIST has a perfect standard. BSI offers some very good standards. Security framework, again, NIST and BSI. We need to focus on transparency. We need to inform each other about what is happening. We need to inform each other also about the issues that we have. We need to focus on testing and validation. Partners, knowledge transfer, upskilling, accept that we're all in the same boat. And we need to look at lifecycle management. And I am going to talk to you in a little bit about the importance of lifecycle management when we are creating new and innovative products. And I'm very happy about the very detailed explanation about the importance of IP and protecting your innovation by Kunal just now. It was a very good session. And I will talk a little bit about the importance of the protection of your reputation and your products from a cyber perspective after it is brought to the market. Now, there's a couple of things going on, and it was mentioned earlier as well. There is a political agenda which is again focusing on isolation of certain partners, preference of own local partners, trying to impose sanctions, etc. And that is risky because no matter how we turn it and no matter what we try to do, if we just look at the situation with China, still the majority of technology and components is produced and manufactured in China. If we start cutting off those suppliers, we are not collaborating when it comes to cybersecurity, and that means we are continuing to put a large segment of products out on the market, and we're not handling the lifecycle management. Collaboration, from my perspective, and a lot of my colleagues agree on that, collaboration throughout the industry and with all innovators, and including all the universities who are building and growing the next generation of innovators, is extremely important. We need to focus on knowledge transfer. We need to focus on patches and patching. We need to focus on testing and auditing and create standard frameworks. But we also need to keep in mind that connectivity and technology are developing so extremely fast that it's most likely that last year's standards are missing a few points. So the same way and the same pace in which we innovate, we also need to keep reviewing our cybersecurity standards. So if we look at that from a big picture approach, and I will speak to that in a few seconds. If we look at it from a big picture approach, then we see that the shared responsibility from the innovator to the vendor, to the component supplier, to the partner who is using the technology, the service provider who makes the technology available, the 32% configuration and the 47% in management issues are all covered by these 8 action items throughout the industry and between partners. And the short and basic message is, we have to get better than this. Now, when everything is fine, you can see me again and my screen sharing has stopped. Let us build the bridge to innovation and to becoming an entrepreneur in the future, or already being an entrepreneur. One of the things that we see globally is that a lot of business models and a lot of innovations are no longer the really big things. A lot of it is basically relatively small. And because it's relatively small, we can deploy it relatively fast. We have models like Agile and we have models like design thinking, which help us to become very fast in bringing new products on the market and new innovations. Ideas into a business model is much faster nowadays than it was 20 years ago. This is great when we look at how we can serve our customers faster. But there is a hidden risk in this. When we look at health, safety, and environment, we need to follow a big picture. We need to keep in mind what the consequences are of that particular change that we make and not just focus on the change. The same thing basically applies to cybersecurity. We need to have a big picture and we need to be able to innovate very fast. We need to be able to bring new products, new features to the market very fast and still focus on the big picture. Still make sure that we understand that we put a product on the market today. And we have listened to our previous speaker, Kunal. We made sure that we have all the IP protection in place. And then that product is on the market. Now, guess what happens if 6 months later there is a significant vulnerability in that particular product? And you have not created a model in which you are going to make sure that you can solve that vulnerability. And solving the vulnerability means somebody somewhere has to analyze that and has to come up with a solution without breaking the product. So the vulnerability must be patched, but the features must still be there. And then you need a mechanism that makes sure that your vulnerability is actually on the products that you have developed. Now, if you have 5 devices somewhere and they're close to you and you know where they are, it's simple. You take a USB disk and you stick and you just go there and just take care of it. But that's not the objective of most innovations. That's not the objective of most companies and entrepreneurs. We are living and working in a globalized world. So there will not be too many of those very small innovations. Your products will be all over the place. And if you have not thought about a mechanism to update and distribute those patches, and if you have not thought about a mechanism that makes sure that you don't depend on somebody being aware that they have to do an update or whatever the reasons might be that updates are not taken care of, you will end up with the following situation. We have the wonderful example of Microsoft. Currently, we're using an innovative new product of Microsoft Teams. I really enjoy it. It's wonderful. Microsoft has the following challenge. It develops a very wide range of products, operating systems, Office applications, etc. And all those solutions are used on equipment they have not produced. That's challenge number 1. It's also used on equipment they are not actively managing. They don't own all those computers and servers and smartphones. Other people are responsible for that. There is not a company worldwide which invests so much in cybersecurity, in research, in making those patches available, in avoiding issues. They have a very large threat intelligence service and they share a lot of information. Still, roughly half of all the systems around the world which run a Microsoft product are not properly updated, managed, and patched. Although Microsoft makes those patches available and nobody is as good at this as Microsoft, and they invest heavily in that. Ask yourself, who has the reputation of being cybersecurity risk? Not all those companies who fail to do their job when it comes to protecting the systems that they bought. The reputation of cybersecurity risk is still carried forward to Microsoft, although they do everything they can and they do more than most others. That is the reputational part. So if you are a starting entrepreneur or if you are part of a larger organization where you are driving the innovations, if you have not from the beginning developed that cybersecurity policy and have developed the mechanisms by which you can ensure that everything you do in the future is distributed, the reputational damage ends with you. Now, guess what will happen to your company when the reputation of your company is you don't take care of cybersecurity? Your innovation can be fantastic, and still your potential clients will be reluctant to buy your products. The second issue that you will see is a lot of those reputational items don't have to be always true. And the Microsoft example shows that, I think, beyond any doubt. So when you can avoid that you become part of cybersecurity breaches and cybersecurity issues, you're on the safe side. The next challenge that we see with a lot of products, and that is not just new products, that is also existing products, is that a lot of technology, and especially the new technology, is not on a horizon of more than 1 year for the vendors and the innovators who create them. But the customers make those investments, depending on the cost, of course, for maybe 3 years or maybe 10 years. If you look at medical equipment, for example, and we see a fantastic boom of innovation in the healthcare area. And COVID-19 made that even more important and more crucial. But the equipment itself is in most cases relatively expensive when you look at the available budgets at hospitals and doctors. So they buy that equipment not with the plan to replace it in 2 years, they buy that equipment with the plan to use it at least 10 years. Now, if you have a vendor of those and a producer of that technology, which agrees on 10 years and makes that commitment for the 10 years that you use my technology, I will make sure that you get all the security patches and the policies, but also the training. If you have a new operator 8 years from now, you can send them to me for a training. I give you that guarantee. Then you have the option of lifecycle management. When that level of support during the entire life cycle of the technology is not part of the plan, if it's not part of the strategy, there will be losers because your customer will use your technology for that period. If you don't support it, you don't have the strategy, if you don't have the means, and also if you don't have the vehicles to make it happen, you will end up with technology with your name on it, which is somewhere out there, and that ends up in this one big, very dangerous pocket of abandoned technology. Now, as an innovator, we are conditioned almost to focus on creating new technology, creating new features. We have to retrain ourselves in two things. As Kunal mentioned, we have to rethink it's not just that we create the innovation, we also have to protect the IP, and we have to do that properly. And the second thing we have to retrain ourselves is it's not just creating the technology, it is managing the technology from a security perspective throughout the life cycle of that technology. If you build something which can be used for 10 years, you also have the obligation to manage it and patch it and provide support for that same period of 10 years. We see a lot of good development. We see that a lot of universities are picking up on this. Now we have to make sure that it becomes part of our thinking. We have to make sure that the startups who make fantastic new products, and sometimes they already get sold after 6 months. We still have to make sure that the security responsibility is carried forward, no matter how short or long-lived our products are. We're moving in a direction which is better, but we still are not moving fast enough. So I hope that, especially a country like India, where There's a lot of highly educated and highly skilled people. Universities are thriving and growing. That we there can create the focus on innovate and secure. That was my part so far. I'm looking forward to any questions and input. And I want to re-stress this one simple message. 50% of the cybersecurity damage is not so much the cybersecurity incident itself, but it is the damage to your reputation. And there is a very long tradition saying it can take years to build a good reputation, and it takes minutes to lose that good reputation. So we also have to look at this from a reputational, from an image perspective, almost from a marketing perspective. Cybersecurity is, and in the future will even be more, part of the selling story. If you don't have it, you're at risk of being out of business faster than you can think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So we have a question.
Yes, please.
How can we save ourselves from cyber attack, and how it will affect cloud security in near future?
Cloud security is something where we have to take a very close and careful look at. There are basically three types of cloud service providers. There is the cloud service provider who takes your entire process and workflow, puts it in their cloud environment, and takes care of everything. Now, then it's important that you have a guarantee that they also take care of your security issues. The most common cloud service providers, like Google, like AWS, they have security tools and they have security features, but the active management of that security is still in your hands, is still in your responsibility. And that is a very common misunderstanding that a lot of people and organizations believe that when they migrate their on-premises secure processes to a cloud service provider, that security will be handled there automatically. And that is not the case. It is true that those professional, especially the large, widely spread service providers, do have a lot of safety features. And the risk of one of those instances being breached is comparably smaller than when you have your own technology, because they have a lot of skills and they are working, they have dedicated teams for that, they're working constantly on it. But it still is the case that you have to take care of your own security. So if you set up, for example, a domain with a cloud service provider, but you do not take care of the proper access management and you do not take care of the proper simple things like multi-factor authentication, and you allow your users to share their passwords or that they have not the proper protection, there's still a risk. And that risk is, at that particular example, even bigger, because now your cloud is available to everybody who has access to it. So cloud is, on the one hand, an enabler, but it's not what commonly is believed that it will take care of all cybersecurity issues. It will definitely offer you a set of protection and a set of tools, and you will definitely benefit from the fact that large cloud service providers have all kinds of scanning tools, they have experts available, etc. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir. One more question, sir.
Yes, please.
How is multi-factor authentication beneficial?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part, please?
How is multi-factor authentication beneficial?
Well, the most important part of multi-factor authentication is that it takes away one of the very big risks. A lot of people still use the same username and password for basically everything. That's one risk which is taken away by multi-factor authentication. What multi-factor authentication does is that it says we need from at least one other known device or known initiative a confirmation that you are who you say you are. So even if a hacker would have access to your account name and password through multi-factor authentication, and the easiest form is you log in. After confirmation of your username and password, there is a code sent to the registered device, which could be your mobile phone. You then have to type that code before you can continue. And that's the most simplest form. There are other much more advanced form. There are identity confirmation tools. Google offers that a lot of more. And the trick and the biggest benefit is it introduces at least one more layer of security by which you have to identify yourself as the person that you are. We can compare it to the real life situation. I call somebody and I say, this is my name. And the person says, yeah, well, wonderful, thank you very much. Please also give me your date of birth. And that person then checks my date of birth against my name. When you go to a hotel, for example, and you check in, you say your name, and they say, thank you very much, we have a reservation. Now please show me your passport to prove that you are who you say you are, because otherwise anybody who knows my name could walk in. You see the same with flights. You have to show your passport to confirm your identity. Multi-factor authentication is a bit more advanced than that, but it takes away the risk of depending only on information which can be easily abstracted.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Can we have one last question?
Of course.
Yes. So the question is from a computer department faculty member. So can we believe that Android mobiles are secured from cyber attack, or can you please suggest some basic security measures to consider?
Well, rule number one is no single device is guaranteed against cybersecurity attacks. There are different philosophies. Apple, for example, with iPhone says we built the sandboxes, so even if something happens, as soon as the application ends, that instant ends. It's a strategy, it works very efficient, but it's not 100% guarantee. Android is a much more open platform. There are risks that the user installs some apps which are not secure. There are, of course, also risks, and we've seen that lately again. 4,000 apps have been removed from the Android App Store because they had cybersecurity issues and they were illegally collecting data. 4,000 apps which have been in the Google Play Store. So there is not a guarantee, and it's not whether or not a certain device or a certain operating system is safe. The main advice I give to everybody is check your settings. Your settings are the first step towards decreasing access. The second step, and that applies to basically everybody, is think before you do something. Think before you click on a link. Think before you share information. Think before you install that new app. Do you really need it? What is the who is the vendor? Is it the reliable vendor? Are the security certificates, etc., etc.? But the most important thing that we all must understand is we should never believe that somebody else is taking care of our security and our privacy. That's our own responsibility, and that mainly depends on the things that we do. So Android, yes, Google does amazing work in keeping that as safe as possible, But no, it is not a guarantee and it's not 100% safe.
Okay, sure, sir. Thank you, sir. So I request again Khairnar sir to summarize about this session.
Yes, madam. Good afternoon again, once again. Really wonderful session by Dr. Johannes Drooghaag. Sir, I would like to thank you for such a wonderful session, informative session. And sir has thrown the light on 4 important points. That is nothing but the need for collaboration in cybersecurity for a connected society, in which he told us, he gives us the details about the uses, applications, technology, configuration, and the management. And he rightly said that 50% of damage of the cyber security is, is a very, it's not good for us, it's not good for the whole society. So it is very much important to take care of each and every, like he rightly given the example of Android phones also. While downloading any app, while taking any security measures, we should think twice before allowing any app or before downloading any app, so that we will be more secure. Once again, thank you very much, sir, for such a interesting and wonderful session. Over to Madam Sonam, Madam.
Yes. So, sir, we are honored by your presence today, this afternoon. Thank you, sir, for providing remarkable insights regarding cybersecurity, which is the need of the hour nowadays in this pandemic situation as the globe is opting for e-learning platforms. Thank you so much. So
You're welcome and thank you.
Yes, sir.